way we can have this on file. So, did you say something, Grant?
That sounds good.
Okay, great. So basically, the first thing is discovering the opportunity. Since Jijun's already run programs in the past, she's familiar with the process. I don't need to preach to the choir, but she's aware of why these programs are important and essential. Would you say so, Jijun? Have you grown yourself from offering these opportunities?
Yes, yeah.
Could you just tell us just a little bit off the top of your head, the first thing that comes to your mind of why you enjoy to offer these opportunities and why you think that it's important for other professors to offer similar programs?
So when I got over there to Japan, of course, it's like after 12 years, I go back to Japan. I lived in Japan for 8 years. And first I thought I just bring the students back, to let them see everything. But once I see they getting so excited by everything, and so they like all the technology and the culture and all the adventures in Tokyo. They think Tokyo is the place they should stay. And some students also already looking for a job in Japan, and one of the students trying to apply for a university in Japan, in Tokyo.
Oh, perfect.
So I kind of opened more opportunities for them.
Mm-hmm.
I was excited to see that.
Absolutely.
So I feel their career or the way of their looking to the future is a change there. Even the trip was so short.
Absolutely. Do you think that you offering these opportunities to the students, and then you having the opportunity to see these students, their minds opened, and to see them fall in love with the country, does that make it worth it to you to go through all of the paperwork and to do all of the extra work to make the program reality? Does it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree completely, and I would say that, I don't know, 9 out of 10 of the professors that do this regularly have the same opinion. So I think it's important for new professors to hear that, so they can understand that, okay, it's worth it, and they'll definitely walk away with a positive experience. So yeah, that's great. And most importantly, I just want to say thank you, because I think professors are the biggest influencers, and they're the most important ones, because they're the most important role in this. That's why it's called faculty-led, because without them, these programs wouldn't exist. So you're absolutely essential, and we appreciate you. So thank you. But in all sincerity. So the next point I want to talk about is kind of reaching out and connecting with your provider, right? So basically, if you're working with a local university college in Japan, for example, if you're working with a third-party provider, like Study Abroad Association or EF Tours or any other company that provides services, I think it's very important to have communication with them and to have back and forth, and to understand if they are going to develop a program with you and listen to you and develop a program, or if it's going to be like, this is the options, take it or leave it. I think that's very important to kind of find out what options you do have available and make sure that you shop around. It's very essential because there's many providers all around the world, and it's important to look at everything that's available to you. So that's always important to do your research. The next thing after that is meeting the person that's going to bring your vision to life. Okay, so we call this an account manager. So the ideal account manager is one that's going to listen to your goals, understand what you're trying to achieve with your course, with your program in general, and to bring a program back to you that mirrors, that replicates exactly what you were looking for. Okay, that's the type of account manager that you want to have a relationship with, and the person that you can go back and forth time and time again to iron out the program and to bring your vision to life. Okay. And like I said, most importantly, understanding your objectives, because this is your program, and the program should 100% match your goals and should bring your course to life. Okay. Because if you're going to a foreign destination and the attractions that you're visiting, the locations, the guest lecturers, if they don't pertain directly to your course, then you're losing time and you're losing money. So it's important that every aspect of the program in some way enhances your course. Okay? Do you agree with that, Zhijun? Is that kind of, would you suggest that professors kind of have that relationship with someone that's supporting them?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, great. So choosing destinations, where, when, why, okay? First of all, depending on what you're teaching, since you teach Mandarin and you teach Japanese, right?
Yes.
Obviously, that's going to define where we're going, okay? Where are those languages spoken, okay? When are we going to go? Let's look at Japan, for example. We know that the Olympics is coming up in 2020, right?
Yes.
Is it an optimal time to go exactly when the Olympics are taking place?
The Olympics August.
August, exactly. So,
But no, it would not be.
right. But I probably, most likely, it would not be if we're looking at the financial side, right? If we're looking at the overall experience, yes, it would be fabulous, right? It'd be very, very international, but it'd also be even more crowded and busy than it currently is. But since we're looking at May, that's a perfect time. The weather's lovely. Schools have academic calendar break. We can easily take the program. We have great flight prices, and we can run a very in-depth program during that window. So determining where you're going to offer your program, when you're going to offer your program, and most importantly, why that destination, right? It's important that the destination that you choose enhances your course, okay? So since we've already discussed it, you're teaching Japanese, we're going to Japan, right? That's kind of self-explanatory, but sometimes with other subject areas, you might have, I'll give you an example of a program that was submitted the other day. We had a professor that wanted to offer a English program in Nigeria, right? So in Nigeria, English is commonly spoken, as it was it was colonized by the English. So they do speak English, but is it an optimal destination to offer an English focused program in? Possibly, if there's a connection with literature, but we have to look at cost. We have to look at, in comparison to other destinations. So that's an example, or I'll give you a better example. Biology. The professor says, I want to do biology in Antarctica. Okay, yes, Antarctica is very diverse. However, do we have options that are closer to home? For example, Costa Rica, Belize, options that are closer to home that are more affordable and can provide an in-depth experience. Okay, so where, when, why? Absolutely important to choosing the best destinations for your course. Program length. So since we are discussing community college programs, we need to look at the student body of community colleges, okay? Community colleges have a very diverse student body population. We have non-traditional students. We have parents. We have students that they didn't go to college or university originally out of high school. They waited 10, 20, 30 years to go back and to get their degree. We have working students. We have students who have family obligations, right? Time is absolutely essential when you're looking at successful programs for community college students. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have that doesn't mean that we shouldn't offer a 4-week-long program or a 6-week-long program, etc. Absolutely, there should be options for programs that are, long-term or semi-long-term, a little bit longer than short-term. However, if we do want to have optimal programs for the community college population, short-term is where it's at. The programs that tend to have the highest enrollment are 8-night programs that are 2 weekends with a Monday to Friday gap in between, because that means that they're only missing 5 days from work. They're missing their Monday to Friday. They utilize the 2 weekends. They can fit in a 8-night program in an international destination, and they can still achieve all of their contact hours, 48 contact hours throughout that program, to justify 3 credit hours and a short-term study abroad experience. Okay, so whenever we're looking at what programs we want to offer to the students to keep it within reach of more students, we need to look at the length of the program. Okay, do you guys agree with that? Based on your experience?
Yeah.
Jejun, how about?
Yeah. Yes, yeah, I agree with you.
I have found, like, basically that programs that are 2 weeks is kind of the extension to keep it within reach of the majority. The same way if you're looking at like finances, that programs that are under $3,000 are more likely to make than programs that are above that mark. There's some kind of, I'm not sure what the statistics are there, but basically once you go beyond that 3,000 mark, especially looking at community colleges, the program does not have the same likelihood to be successful and reach the minimum as if you keep it below that mark. It's kind of a invisible wall there, I've found with past experience. But anyway, back to program length. Whenever you're deciding how long your program is going to be, that's when you needed to kind of decide what type of program is it going to be. Okay, so is it going to be a city stay program where we're going to spend the majority of our time in a in one select city, primal city, where we spend 5 days, 1 week, or however long in that primary location, and we really do everything that's available in that location. We build a relationship with that location. We learn how to navigate that city so that way they can return in the future and they can travel as locals in that location. Is it going to be a cross-country program? Are we going to go north to south, east to west? Are we going to have a more in-depth look at the entire country? Or is it going to be a multi-country program, meaning that we're going to visit, one or two, possibly even three countries during this program? This is all very important to keep in mind whenever we're deciding how long the program is going to be, and also to understand what is realistic and what's not. Okay. For example, if we have an 8-day program, if we know that that is our window, we have to put a program within the spring break window, right? 8-night program that's going to run from a Saturday to the following Sunday. A multi-country program possibly might not be ideal because we're not spending enough time in one location and we're spending more time transferring between the locations, okay? Depending on where you're traveling, okay? But that's important to look at. Is it going to be a cross-country program where they're going to look at two different complete areas of the country? For example, in Ecuador, we have a group that's there right now where half of the trip they're spending in the Andes in the mountains, and the other half they're spending in the Amazon. One country that has two completely different landscapes, climates, as well as cultures, and seeing both sides of that, right? So that'd be your cross country. And then a city-stay program. I always suggest for community colleges to take advantage of city-stay programs, and universities for that matter, because city-stay programs, one, are more affordable, and two, based on post-trip evaluation surveys, city-stay programs always come back with the best results. Students feel that they were really able to unpack, they were able to connect, and they were able to build a relationship with that destination that they were visiting. And then obviously on the weekends and things like this, you have, a 2-day excursion to a nearby city or something else, right? To show some variety, something maybe more traditional, small towns or villages. But they really were able to build a connection, and that experience actually inspired them to want to keep having similar experiences, to kind of let's pack it all into one experience, and then this is the best and last trip of your life kind of experience, So it's important to look at the length of your programs and the types of your programs. Now, whenever we're looking at, time while we're in country, there's many options for how you want to lay out the day-to-day. Are we going to have, course time where you're teaching, instructing, do we need classroom space? Or are the contact hours going to be met with field experience, such as visiting national parks or doing biology labs in the collecting data in the rainforest and then bringing it back for the labs, museum visits, cultural activities, etc., right? Or having guest lecturers? How do we want to lay out the day? I think that an optimal day would be a mixture of all of those, where we have a bit of field experience, in the morning, for example. In the afternoon, we have cultural, and then, in the evening or part of the day, we have for free time and cultural immersion, for the students to be able to explore, to get lost responsibly. Okay. We don't want to lose anybody, but we want them to be able to discover kind of, the city or the town that they're visiting and have time to explore. Zhijun and Grant, I would like to ask you kind of, what do you think about that for the free time or structured free time, however you want to label it? What do you think about that for the programs? Do you find that that's essential? Do you find that that's not essential? What are your opinions?
For me, like for the last program that we had, so at Tokyo, it's definitely good to have some free time, because the city is so big, the places we can visit are limited, and then so the students they want to go someplace they want to go but by themselves.
Perfect.
So we need to have. So it's good to have some free time if we go visit Tokyo.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, I like the idea of free time. The only thing that bothers me is when you see programs that they're building in free time so that they don't, the trip provider is building in a lot of free time so that they don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
We've got, I've never seen that with your programs. Another provider we use, I was looking at one of their schedules, and it was kind of obvious that they had, had built in a lot of free time so that they didn't have to be involved particularly. And, as a cost saving measure, I'm sure that works, but that's not what.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. It's about finding that balance,
Mm-hmm.
and showing the essential locations of the city, having the guest lectures that fit whatever the focus of the course is, the trip is, and then providing a window of opportunity for the students. And one thing we always say is that whenever you do provide that window of opportunity, that doesn't mean it's saying like, okay, everybody, this is free time. I'm off the clock. Good luck. Have fun. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. It's important for whatever provider that you're using that they're providing the students suggestions and advice for what to do with their free time. Because, if you're going to allocate an entire afternoon to just go say, okay, guys, you're on your own. Here's your metro or your subway pass. Good luck. A lot of these students have never left the country, let alone the state. And, they're going to be timid. So you need to pair them up into small groups. Obviously they need to be with, a minimum of 2, 3 preferably. And you need to give them a list of options and then say, hey guys, this is what I suggest. These are all great because of A, B, C. What would you be most interested in? And then double check that they understand how to get there, how to achieve that, and how to get back home to safety. This kind of experience. So that's what I would advise for all professors that are kind of, comparing free time on their program, is to make sure that there's plenty of options and suggestions to make the most of that experience. Because for a lot of the students, when you do read their surveys and their reviews after the program, those open windows for exploration are some of the most memorable for them. So I highly suggest incorporating that into all programs.
Well, I agree with that. And I like that approach also. I know when I've gone on programs, a good example is when I did my Fulbright. Whenever they had our days so structured that there was almost no opportunity to have any downtime, and that's the extreme side of it. Then there are other programs where they do just what you described. They just kind of cut everybody loose. And, timid students will wind up staying in their hotel room. And the less timid, might go out and they may wind up seeing something of value, or they might not.
Exactly. And
having, as you put it, structured free time where they have the option to go off exploring by themselves, or they can get with a group that has an idea of where they're going. I think that's the best compromise.
Absolutely, I agree. Something I would always suggest for group leaders or program leaders, professor chaperones, or guides themselves, is to kind of within the first half hour or so of meeting your group and understanding your group, whenever we have pre-trip orientation, things like this, is to kind of look at do a general survey of your group and kind of determine who you think might need additional attention, who you think might kind of naturally be more, introverted and might not step up to say, hey, I would like to go have this experience during my free time, and kind of pay more attention to them and team them up with somebody that complements well, and to kind of, in short, be aware of your group and, kind of make sure that, no one is left behind. I think that's absolutely essential for all group leaders, especially on faculty-led programs, to understand the makeup of your group, because everybody's very, very different. And, more often than not, you have students who are very, diverse, have their own challenges and struggles, and you need to be aware of your group. So it's very important to be aware of that, and to understand, and to kind of provide support in those areas. Program budget, jumping on. You see all these happy travelers. This is what it's about. Big smiling faces. They're excited. They're in Prague. So affordability is key, okay? No matter if you're at a private university or if you're at a rural community college. Programs that are more affordable, programs that are within reach of more students are going to be successful. It's as simple as that. It always comes down to program price, always. You can have some programs that are quite expensive, out of reach of the majority, that are successful, that continue to run year after year. That's great. However, we need to look at the majority and not the minority. Okay, so we need to make sure that programs are as affordable as possible without sacrificing quality. Okay, and I think that comes down to understanding cost and what is essential to your program. Many times when we're having our initial meetings, consultations with professors, we'll be discussing kind of what their optimal itinerary looks at, what they would like to do, etc. And many times the order is very, very large. Okay, and that's fine. That's completely fine, because everything's possible. But whenever we go back and forth and we discuss with the professor and we say, okay, you understand how much this costs, you understand how much this costs, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that's when we can start to trim the fat on a program and decide what is truly essential for the course and the experience, and what is more of a secondary or luxury choice. Okay, does that make sense? Do you guys know what I'm getting at?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, like, whatever our focus is going to be for that trip, let's make sure that all the activities really enhance that focus and that experience. And then if it doesn't, then maybe we can make those optional. All right. So maybe the zip lining, for example, maybe the zip lining could be an optional activity during that free time window instead of an included part, right? Not to pick on zip lining, because it's great for a lot of programs, but that's just an example. Okay. Deciding what types of accommodation. Okay. Is this hotel a hotel that the professor wants to stay in? Or is this a hotel that is appropriate for student accommodation? Okay, this is something we have to look at. Are we open to staying with screened and trusted host families and homestays, depending on the risk management department at the school? Are we open to staying in budget types of accommodations that are clean, safe, and secure? Or do we need to really stay in the Holiday Inn in foreign countries, right? So all of these are important things to look at whenever we're looking at the budget of the program. Accommodation is very important, you know, and determining what your students need. Do they need to stay in private 2-person per room accommodations, or is it okay if they stay in a 4-bedroom, same gender, with 4 other girls from their program or 4 other boys from their program? You know, it's important that we look at how does the rest of the world travel in comparison to how people from the United States travel, right? And determining what types of accommodation. If it's a community college and we know that we're on a very limited budget and we need to keep it as affordable as possible, I'm going to suggest that we look at and we review, you know, student dormitory types of accommodations at either local universities or top-rated youth hostels that are clean, safe, secured, and researched, that offer things like communal kitchens. So maybe if a student that's in London can't afford to go pay 10 or 15 pounds per meal, we can provide a communal kitchen where they can meet international travelers from around the world. They can make their own food, or they can participate in a hostel dinner that's provided for a very low cost of £5. And they eat a wholesome meal and they get to meet lots of international travelers, okay? So there's many different types of accommodation. All of them have different price tags. It's important to understand what's essential for your group and to find a middle ground, okay? Very important. And most importantly, you want to be in a location where they can have time to go and explore during their free time. You don't want to be in a location that's 30 minutes or 45 minutes out of the heart of the city, and the only way to get there is by, you know, taking 3 metro lines or, you know, a taxi that's going to cost you 50 euros, something like that. That's not what it's about. You need to be in the heart of the location where you are. Okay, that's important. Do you guys agree with that accommodation?
Yes. Normally for my students, they don't mind the sharing room, like a 4, even in the last program, even they had like 7 person in the room.
Wow.
But of course, everybody has their own bed.
Of course.
So if everybody has their own bed, it's no problem.
Of course, yeah. That's guaranteed always. You can. I don't know who came up with that idea of putting multiple students in one bed, but that's a recipe for disaster.
I think EF told me when they go to Europe, if the student chose like a triple or quad, the room assignment, they have to share a bed.
So what they're doing is they're using a double bed, a matrimonial. They're putting 2 in that and then 1 in the single. Yeah, no, you can't do that because you have these students are strangers. More often than not, the girls will be like, "Hey, I don't care, whatever." But just for best practice, you can't do that. Everybody needs their own bed, their own pillow. You know?
Yeah.
Well, Grant, what do you think about finding the middle ground on accommodation?
Well, I tend to agree with you. I mean, it depends a lot on the destination and the course, because I think that sometimes those 2 things sometimes dictate the type of student you're going to get.
Right.
You know, and I do agree with you. I like the idea of there being some options, but not too many. And at the end of the day, having a bunch of kids all cooped up in one room is just not a good idea.
Right. So smaller is always. I've found with just over the past 10 years of doing this and surveys and evaluations that students aren't happy normally if it's more than 4 in a room, just based on statistics here. So kind of we try to avoid, like quad is kind of, quad rooms are kind of are the max, and I would advise that for all providers is to not go beyond 4, because and obviously depending on the experience, right? If they're staying in a research station in the middle of the jungle and they're doing field work and labs like that, that's a completely different scenario. It's summer camp. They're there.
That's what I mean, students that are going to be drawn to a program like that are probably by nature going to be more open to different types of things when they get back home. Whereas if you got a student who's willing to drop, $6,000 to go for a trip to Paris, then they're probably going to have a little different set of expectations.
Exactly. And
and also it doesn't really touch too much on what we're talking about today, but there are cultural differences too. And when we bring in South Korea, they don't mind being forward to a hotel room because it bothers them so much. But I think given what we're talking about, it's difficult to work with.
Yeah, and I think I think what you just brought up is a really important point, because what we're talking about is expectations, right? So basically, whatever type of accommodation that the professor decides that their group is going to have, because the professor is the one that decides this, right? Because this is their program, right? So whatever the professor decides the type of accommodation they're going to have, I think it's extremely important to set the expectations for the students, from the absolute beginning. And, we've had great success with this with Valencia College in Orlando. They had a Spain program, which was we call a cross-country program, where they were visiting north to south, Madrid, and then down to Andalusia. And they told the students from the very beginning, they said, guys, listen, we're staying in youth hostels. They're safe, they're secured, they're well-researched, they're clean, and they're awesome. And we're staying in these places, so you are going to be bunking up with your fellow travelers, same gender. There's going to be 4 or maybe even 6 of you in the same room. They set that expectation from the very beginning. And whenever they arrived, they already knew what to expect, and they were actually pleasantly surprised that that the conditions were better than what the professors had told them, right? So I think and I was gonna talk about that later, because I think that's one of the most important things with these programs, is to set realistic expectations from the absolute beginning, not only with the students but also for the provider to do that with the professor. It's absolutely essential, Kind of fast forward a little bit. Sorry, I didn't mean to digress there. Transportation types, as you know, guys, we have multiple options. We can use public transportation. We can use private charters, a mixture of the two, okay? If there's a more affordable type of transportation that offers good scheduling, good connections, and it's safe and secure, and it's more authentic, then I'm going to use it every time, okay? That's my personal opinion. Why pay excessive fees for a private bus transportation in cities like Paris and things like this, to use a private bus where you're stuck in traffic the majority of the time, and to see the city from a tour bus instead of using public transportation like the locals, okay? So each of those come with a price tag, and it's important to look at all sides, right? Some destinations obviously do not have appropriate public transportation.
Right.
So obviously you need private transfers there, because either the buses are not in the proper condition, there's not enough seats on the buses that you can't pre-book seats, or the actual transfer times are just extremely long, uncomfortable, and not realistic, right? So we have to look at all sides of these. But when it comes down to transportation, you can save a lot of money on a program price by utilizing alternative options. Okay. We discussed earlier, and just to kind of highlight that on public transportation as well, depending on obviously where you're traveling, if it's a European program or if we're in Japan, for example, as we were discussing earlier, my goal is for kind of by day 3 of the program, I want the students to be completely comfortable with knowing how to navigate that city, knowing how to use that transportation, and I want to enable them to travel independently and smartly throughout the program, okay? I don't want them to kind of, to go without that information. I want them to know how to do it. So if we are going to utilize public transportation, I want to make sure that all of those students know how to do it from beginning to end, and they can leave that program comfortably and return in the future, and they can pick up where they left off. Do you guys agree about that, about enabling the travelers to learn how to navigate these destinations?
Yes, I agree.
I do, and I agree that the location is very important. There's some countries where I wouldn't encourage it, but
right.
Certainly in Asia and parts of Southeast Asia, where it's just the norm and it's a part of the cultural experience that we're trying to give them, I would. That said, now if you're in Saigon and you want to go down to do a 2-day trip to Siem Reap, Cambodia, you can take a bus for, or you can fly for about $75, and the flight is an hour and a half, and the bus ride's 13 hours.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a perfect point. What is realistic? What is too backpacker and trying to be too much on a budget, and what is realistic to your program? So I agree with you completely there. It's the same in Peru. You can take a 24-hour bus from Lima to Cusco, or you can take a 2-hour flight.
Right.
So kind of, weighing both those out and going back and forth and understanding. Just to kind of jump ahead, we talked about included activities, what's truly essential, what's not, okay? Also, professor to student ratio. This is extremely important, right? Not all colleges or universities have the program set up in the way to where the students are absorbing the cost of the professor chaperone, but many do, okay? And whenever it is set up in that way, we need to determine what is a realistic ratio and the pros and cons of the different ratios, okay? So common ratios might be 6 students to 1 professor, or it might be 8 students to 1 professor, or it might be 10 students to 1 professor. Preferably in my opinion, I always suggest having 10 students to 1 professor. The reason why that is because with 10 students, we're able to book group airfare, which means that 11 months prior to departure, we can receive a group quote and we can sit on that space, and that flight price will not change. It will stay the same. So there won't be major fluctuation between the program price of what's advertised and what it becomes a reality later. That's the last thing you want. You don't want to have to tell students, hey, sorry, the program's actually $500 more expensive than what we originally told you. You want to avoid that, because that's disappointment. That's not setting realistic expectations. Okay? At the same time, how many students need to enroll in a course at the college or university for the course to reach the minimum to be approved as a course, right? Most college and universities, you have to have 10 students enrolled in the class for the course to make, okay? So each school is different. So it's important that you realize, based on your decision of the ratio, that is going to affect many things. And most importantly, that's going to affect the budget, okay? So my belief and philosophy with this is that if we keep it at 10 students for one professor chaperone, we can provide a program that's more affordable within reach of more students, which means that you're more likely to get 10 students enrolled instead of offering a program that's more expensive, out of reach for the majority, meaning that fewer students can enroll, right? That's my belief, right? But it's about looking at both sides and all sides of that and determining what's appropriate. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I agree with that. We've just now had one program fall through because they did set their cap too low, and so the price was prohibitive already. And then they had a couple of dropouts, and then that drove the cost up past what the others could bear. And it kind of, it has a snowball effect after that begins to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Jijun, is it okay if because I know we're running, I don't know if you guys have appointments after this. I do want to cover a couple things. I'm going to kind of go over just the essentials and kind of fast forward a little bit. Is that okay for you guys?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So proposal, all this kind of things. This is basically after you've decided on your itinerary, how it's going to be, service agreement, cancellation policies, all this kind of thing. I'm going to leave that to Grant, Dr. Sis, to kind of relay all that information, internal policies of how it works with Dallas County, directly with professors. So I'm just going to skip over this slide, okay?
Okay.
And then kind of come to, promotion, okay? We need to put the program in front of the eyes of the students, okay? How do we do that? We can do that. If it's not possible to send a campus-wide email at the school, then we need to look at what is available at the school. Do we have televisions throughout the college or university that advertise different student activities and things like this? Perfect. Let's put a study abroad advertisement there. Can we make a promotional flyer poster similar to this one? Or instead of just having too many posters around the campus, maybe we can decide to make one really attractive poster that offers all of the destinations that are being offered that year in one poster and place those through strategic locations throughout the campus, right? Most importantly, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Go ahead and do your most important, then I'll jump in and explain how it works here.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Mike. Most importantly is the info sessions, okay? These are essential, and this is something that I love to do no matter what, and I'm happy to do it anytime, similar to what we're doing now. If you have a lot of students that are possibly interested in a program, they're sitting on the fence, I'd be thrilled to sit down with them for, half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour, and tell them and kind of give them that nudge to go for it. And more often than not, they'll all end up signing up and joining that program. So having info sessions throughout the fall semester, spring semester is absolutely essential to just kind of answer all those questions for them. So that way they can be like, okay, yeah, this is something I want to do. And we can schedule those info sessions on these promotional posters. We can set dates, we can set times, and we can move forward. Go ahead, Grant. That was all I was saying about that.
Yeah, that's good. So everything you mentioned is doable. About the only thing we cannot do is an email blast that goes to everybody.
Right.
We're currently putting together an email listing of people that opt in who want information like that, so that's good. Each of the colleges has an advertisement board on the street that scrolls past things that are coming up, so we can advertise there. Each of the colleges has internal advertising on TV screen there. We can also do the poster board like you're talking about. in addition to that, you were involved in our study abroad and international engagement last spring, which generated a huge amount of interest. We're going to go forward with that and do 2 of those a year. So we'll do one in the fall, we'll do one in the spring.
Great.
Is to get that done early in the planning cycle, because to be candid, we were a little bit late to the party on that one, and we got a lot of interest in students after the forum, but most of the trips had already maxed out and couldn't accept any students. But we're going to get out in front of it this year. And then, as you mentioned, also, if there is a number of faculty who just want to have a one-on-one meeting and willing to come meet.
Absolutely. And by doing all that, I'll say you already have a recipe for success.
Yeah, I also left out the district-wide newsletter, which is, it's funny because, as you know, different people get their information different ways. And so some people read the billboard on the street, some and don't read the newsletter too much. Some read the newsletter and don't pay attention to the billboards. So the idea, of course, some are willing to come to a forum and some are not. So the idea is to advertise as broadly as possible so that we get the offerings out in front of as many people as possible.
You got it. You got it. Zhizhen, I wanted to ask you, what do you find personally, since you've done this a few times now, what do you find personally works best for you, kind of making students aware of the opportunity, your students? What do you find works best?
So for the past, because I mainly teach online, I really don't see my students.
Right.
So I kind of send my information out to the past to the previous students.
Yeah.
Also went to other colleges to visit the class.
Okay.
They had the Japanese class.
Great. So you utilize your students that are enrolled in your online courses as well as your alumni students, your previous students.
Yes.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And that's a very successful way of doing it. And you just send them an email notification. You let them know about, hey guys, I'm going to be taking a group of students for a educational cultural program to Japan in 2020. Who wants to join me? Here's more information. Is that kind of how you do it?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So that's one way of doing it, which I absolutely suggest. And I agree with you, Grant, as well, is to look at every single way that's possible. These 10 steps right here, I kind of skipped over this quickly because a lot of these we're not permitted to do at Dallas County. For example, the campus-wide email, which is the most effective. However, we found solutions to make a general. If you're interested in finding out more information, please subscribe to this newsletter and you'll receive more information. So we found a middle ground there. That's great. But like you said, plan ahead, start early. Absolutely the most essential thing. Offer the study abroad fair, which you just mentioned. You're doing it in the fall and spring. That's brilliant. That means that you're going to have a year-round awareness, and you're going to have tons of interest, not only from students, but faculty, which is really the drive, the engine behind all of it. Setting up a study abroad table is a great way in the student unions, at least with information that might be like laminated information where they can come, they can observe, they can take a screenshot, they can take a photo, whatever, of the information. Anywhere where there's a lot of students congregating, put information in front of their eyes, right? Faculty development, which we're doing right now. and marketing throughout the campus and regular informational meetings and most importantly, affordable programs. Those 10 steps are guaranteed to increase participation. So yeah, I'm happy that we're all kind of seeing the same thing here. Can I jump ahead to safety real quick?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, so each campus obviously has their own risk management departments, their own policies, et cetera. That's great. The number one goal here is for everyone to have a enriching experience, return home safely, happy. That's our number one goal every time, okay? We talked about traveler's insurance included, finding the optimal plan. I'm gonna skip over that because each school kind of, has their own requirements. On-ground support, this is very important. You wanna make sure that your operator is gonna have on-ground support, local operations in the destinations that they're operating in, or resources to be able to fix situations when there might be situations, okay? That might be that a student's sick and you need a backup guide, for example, to take that student to the hospital while the rest of the group can continue with their program, okay? So you wanna make sure you have on-ground support and that it's just not, one office in some random country that cannot help you when you need help. It's very important, okay? Responsibilities of the group leader. Again, this comes down to every college and university's internal policies, but basically your responsibility is to make sure that your group's taken care of and that you get everybody home safely. Obviously, if they make their own choices while they're abroad and they don't follow internal policies and they put themselves at risk by their own choices, that's their decision. However, these are your babies. But the important thing is to understand that you need support on ground that takes off some of that, pressure from you. You need to know that your group leader, your local group leader, your on-ground support staff, your guide is there also to help corral and to lead your group throughout the program to make sure that you can do what you went there to do, which was to teach and to add value to the course, right? So you shouldn't have all of those responsibilities on your shoulder of, corralling the group from beginning to end. That should be shared with whatever organization that you're working with. And I have complete respect for professors that do it 100% on their own. However, I do understand that it is a large liability. As I just mentioned, whenever you do have the situation of one of the travelers in the group is ill, how do you take one person and have them cover the other person that needs support, So it's important that you're protected on all sides and that you either have a backup professor with you or that you have on-ground support that can accommodate with you. Communication through WhatsApp groups, through Facebook messengers, whatever. Set up some type of communication with your students where everyone can be connected throughout the program. It's absolutely essential, okay? And this is something that we cover during our pre-trip orientations. We make sure that everybody is on some platform where they can all communicate in the case of emergencies, okay? Very important that you have pre-trip orientations. You go over, what to do, what not to do in the country that you're visiting, how to pack, how not to pack, what's expected of you, etc. Okay, it's very important that you have these pre-trip meetings, and especially that once they arrive in the country, that you have this on-ground briefing where you say, okay, guys, we're really here. It's reality now. Everything that we told you in the pre-trip meeting still exists, and it's important that we keep that in mind while we're here. So depending on where you are, everyone's alert, everyone's aware, and they know what to do and what not to do, okay? That is essential for making sure that the program runs very, very smooth. Also, completing your forms, your medical forms and your release forms. Release forms, that's a side topic, okay? Wait.
Yeah, that's one that we would, we've been very proactive and intentional about all that here at the Dallas County College District, and one that my office directly oversees. So we're knee deep in that.
Perfect. And that's what we want. We want everyone to be protected with the release forms. And I just want to highlight on the medical forms. Many times, colleges and universities, they're not permitted to collect medical information from their students, which can make it very challenging, especially if you have students who have severe medical conditions or they've just had recent medical operations that could possibly put them in danger with whatever destination that they're visiting. That's why you want a provider or an organization that can collect that information from the students without having to go directly through the college or university. So that way the on-ground team and staff can be aware of everything. And in the case of an emergency, we have the information that we need to be able to provide the medical professionals to make sure that if we have a student that's unconscious and they need to give medication to the student, that it's not medication that they're highly allergic to that could, cause a much larger problem. I'll give you an example on that, not to get too off topic, but we had a student just this past week that went down to Costa Rica. She had had a heart surgery 1 month prior to the program. The doctor permitted her safe to travel. Okay, she's in Costa Rica as we're speaking, permitted her safe to travel. However, one of the locations that we were visiting during the program, Punta Mona, is an off-grid sustainable community which you can only access via boat or by 3-hour hike through, or by horseback through the jungle, which means that if you have a student who has just had heart surgery a month prior and is going to be stuck in a location, and Grant, I believe you were in Punta Mona, correct?
I have been there. Yes, it's very remote.
So that would be a red flag. Say, okay, we need to change this itinerary to accommodate to this student, right?
Yeah, and I can tell you that I need to send over the forms that we have all of our participants sign. But the faculty does have sole authority. They can. We make the students sign a waiver that gives the faculty the authority to tell them, no, you can't do this. So we've done everything we can. We also do gather as much medical information, physical condition as we can.
Correct.
At the same time, we need to tell our faculty that, just because a student is willing to go on a trip doesn't necessarily mean they're suited to the trip.
Correct.
We've had trips where which were walking tours of a given place and had students show up, on crutches.
Right.
That would be a situation where the faculty member would have to say, look, I'm sorry, but due to your condition, you can't go on this trip because it's going to create issues for everybody, including you. And that would be something that, it's always dicey, and luckily it doesn't happen often, but when it does, we are able to tell students that they can't do that.
Exactly. And so, yeah, I would just kind of say that that's that's something we have to kind of look at by, circumstance by circumstance, situation by situation, and everyone decide together what's the best decision for the group, even though that's a very challenging choice. But yeah, so it all comes down to communication. That's 100% about communication. Kind of fast forward, guys, so I can keep it, I know we're over time, but keep it within the next couple minutes. Time to travel, flight. You should have access to a provider that is going to help you with flight situations. As Grant mentioned earlier, many flights this year had weather conditions, okay? That's just the way it worked out in 2019. You should not be trying to fix your own flight situations from the airport by yourself. You should have access to someone who's going to fix it for you, okay? Most importantly, communicate with your group and let them understand that, guys, this is travel. It's not guaranteed. It's not perfect, but it's absolutely amazing. Let's just go with the flow, okay? If everybody gets on that mentality and that page from the beginning of the trip, go with the flow, embrace everything that comes your way, everybody's going to leave positive, right? If we start getting upset and stressed out about delays and things like that, and we let that affect our positivity, the trip's going to go downhill from there. So that's very important for you as a leader to kind of establish that positive outlook and mentality with your group, okay? Upon arrival to the destination, your on-ground guide, country manager, tour leaders, whoever, they're going to be there waiting for you. And from that point, your program's ready to just kind of, you know, fold out and just continue to roll. Now, very important, like I just mentioned regarding the flight and everything like that, it's very, very important to establish a positive attitude with the students, okay? And that comes from the professor and the leader, and most importantly, your guides and on-ground staff. The students need to understand that they are going on this program to get out of their comfort zone. They're going on this program to experience something different than what they're used to. We need to make that clear to them from the very beginning, because if the students are not with that mentality of this is going to be different, I might be uncomfortable, I might have to try something that I've never tried before, or something that I'm not sure that I ever imagined trying. If they don't have that mentality and that go with the flow mentality, there's going to be disappointment with a lot of them. So I think it's very, very important that you establish that positive mentality with them, and you say, guys, we're in this, you're going to be fine, you're going to be safe, you're going to have an amazing experience. Dive in, go for it, and immerse yourself as safely, responsibly, but, you know, immerse yourself into the culture as much as possible with every opportunity. You know, try everything, right? And that just kind of goes to the next point. And I know you guys agree because you're both super well-traveled, but I think that's essential for anywhere you go in the world. You have to have an open mind, and you have to be easy and go with the flow and understand that that not everything's going to go as planned, but more often than not, it works out better for that reason. What do you guys think about that?
I agree. I hate to be this way. I'm going to have to jump out of the call now.
That's okay, buddy. Understand.
And we'll do it again tomorrow. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I've noticed that when faculty set the students' expectations beforehand, that's much better. And that when they do that, students have they have the tendency to deal with the interruptions much better.
Great. Grant, thanks for joining us. Zhijun, do you have 5 more minutes and I can just take you through the last slide?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll see you tomorrow, Crispy.
All right, buddy. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you again. Thank you. All right. Thanks, sir. So Zhijun, when I was with the, what do you think about that? Because I would love your input, considering you're international, living in the United States. You're taking students from the United States to your home country and other destinations. What do you think about that? How do you communicate that with students about getting out of their comfort zone?
Yeah, having like a positive attitude definitely will help with everything, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Which destination out of the ones that you offer do you find students have more of a culture shock?
So when we were in Japan, and then we visited a lot of shrines, temples. So some of my students said she's a Christian. She does not want to do anything, because when we got there and the tour director showed us how to pray, how to,
Oh, okay.
she thought that's like a religious but we think that this is just a cultural experience.
Right.
But even I told her, she still kind of,
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of feel like resistant to do anything.
Right. I understand. But that was the majority of the group. They were open to observation and to listening and to participation. The majority.
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, like we said, kind of communication, telling them like, guys, everything's gonna be great. Go with the flow. Keep that positive attitude, positive mental attitude. Everybody will be pleasantly surprised, and it'll be a successful trip. Speaking of successful trips, I just want to kind of go through the post trip. What to do after your program. For me, I think it's absolutely essential to collect feedback with everything you do. Okay, because I can be completely honest with you. When I first started running programs in 2009, I had programs that the first program that I ran. The students had an excellent time, but logistically it was very sloppy. It was it was not well run. Okay. And I collected feedback on that program, and I did not like to see the feedback that I got, right? I didn't enjoy that because it was the truth, and the truth hurt. The program was not a smooth program, but those surveys, those reviews, all of that feedback helped us build a much better program. And I think that's what we're trying to do with study abroad programs and in everything in life, So I think that collecting feedback is absolutely essential. And we have forms. If professors don't have forms, we have electronic forms that are super easy. Everybody can fill out very quickly to get that feedback from your students. Like, if nine out of 10 students said that they didn't enjoy a restaurant, then possibly we should look for an alternative restaurant, right? For example, right? Based on that feedback, we can make reports, and we can use all of this for growth and planning for the future. Most importantly, when we're collecting testimonials, from the students, we can use all this information for articles and public relations with the campus newspapers and the local community papers. Because newspapers, especially community college newspapers and university newspapers, are always looking for stories. And what's a better way to generate interest in a program than to write a story about a program that was just finished and to have real life testimonials from these travelers, And then basically, based on that feedback, you make modifications, you make adjustments, and most importantly, you plan for the future and you repeat the program, improved and better version 2. So that is kind of, in my opinion, the essentials, how to run a faculty-led program and to kind of cover all the steps. Jejun, I would love to answer any questions you have, or to to just get your general feedback about everything. What are you thinking?
So I have one question. So can family member or friends join the group too?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for us, we're open to all travelers joining the program. That the host institution, so the college or the university that is hosting the program, if they're open to it, we're 100% open to it. Yes.
So I have since you are still flexible with the itinerary.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about maybe, do you think it's better to go in? The first stop is Kyoto.
Yeah.
And then come towards to Tokyo, and then come back from Tokyo.
So first up Kyoto, and then head up north to Tokyo, and then to fly out of Tokyo.
Yeah.
So multi-city flights are often ideal, so you don't have to, return to where you flew into. What I would suggest that we do is that we look at the flight prices, and we determine, is it smarter to, for example, if we have 2 flight quotes, okay, and one flight is $300 cheaper with a standard round trip in and out of Tokyo, for example, okay, and it's $300 more affordable than a multi-city flight, then we might decide, hey, why don't we just take the high-speed train back down, and then we'll take our connecting flight, okay, or back up, and we'll take our connecting flight on the multi-city option, right, or for the round trip option. But if the multi-city ticket is almost the same price as the standard round trip ticket, then let's just keep it simple, and let's fly into one location and let's return from the other location. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's like the old trip we did. We went in from Osaka, and then because we also visited the Hiroshima.
Of course.
Yeah, and then come back up to the east, come back to Kyoto, and then Tokyo.
Exactly. So my suggestion is be open to all of the options and look at the budget and look at the time that we have to spend between traveling, right? If we have to go back to the origin, the starting point of the program.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to compare that and decide what is best for the group and what is best for the budget of the program, And
also, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Also, there is another one reason, because when we go, we take as less as we can about the package, about the luggage.
Correct.
But when we come back, a lot of students we have to do a lot of shopping.
Right. Exactly.
And the Tokyo is kind of the best place for them to do shopping.
Yeah. So exactly, souvenir shopping at the end of the trip. Then you can check your bag. So basically, you're saying, hey, let's fly to Osaka, for example, and we'll carry our bags on the plane with us. But then when we return home from Tokyo, let's check our bags because now we have a lot of souvenirs. Correct?
Yes. When we go, we just only have a carry-on bag or carry-on suitcase. But when we go, but when we come back, a lot of students bought another big suitcase to check in, to put all the souvenirs in.
Exactly. And yes, that's completely smart. And I love that you say, and that I love when professors say that they encourage their students to carry on all the time, especially on the way over. Whenever you say that, I get really excited. I'm like, yes, this is going to avoid a lot of problems. And I'm very excited to work with you because in my opinion, as a smart traveler, that's what you should always do is carry on as much as possible. So you don't have to go without missing your luggage and have flight delays with your luggage, et cetera. You always know where it is. You get in and out of the airport easier. So yeah, to answer your question, we can definitely offer for your particular program a multi-city flight option like that. All you need to do is just send me an email and let me know what you prefer, and we'll go ahead and request it, and then we can look at everything together.
Yeah. So I'm not so sure if Grant really wants to go or not, but I will ask what he prefers,
Okay.
He already told me if I want to bring my students to the Ghibli,
Yeah.
So I want to ask him if he has some place to go. So I talk with
Okay.
him, and then I will send you email.
You take all the time you need, and we're ready for you when you're ready, and we'll stay in touch in the meantime. And I'm really looking forward. And I want to thank you, Zhijun, for joining me today. I know we went over time, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you have a beautiful day. Okay.
You too.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.
Ciao. Bye bye.